Hi everybody, my name is Hannah, this is Pepper and Pine. Welcome to this video where I'm going to share with you our math games, some that we've loved in our homeschool for years, some of them are brand new. So most of these are math games that are competitive in nature, but I also do have a few math activities that would be suitable for children who prefer not to do competitive games or who just want to have an activity that's math-based. And I'm also going to share with you how you can modify some of the more competitive games to suit students of various abilities and various ages. So I'm going to start with my favorite math game, and I want to just say that this is going to be a hard game to find, but I think that you can DIY it really easily. I've included the video in which I DIY this game down in the description box below, so you can check that out so that you can see how you can make your own game based on this, I think, 1980s math game. So I had this as a child and loved it a lot, and I think that it is really great for mastering your multiplication tables, and it also includes some simple addition and subtraction. So it comes with this board that has all of these little tiles, and actually for lasting like 35 years plus, I think that it's really good quality and really durable. It comes with these little cardboard tiles, and it's all on this plastic tray. And then it also comes with the number tiles, and these are the ones that you're trying to make with these tiles on the board. So basically, when you get the number 30, for instance, and there are the numbers 1 through 50, you are trying to create the number 30 using any of the numbers on the board by multiplying the first two numbers and then adding or subtracting the following number. So let's just take another example. And by the way, the 6s or the 9s act as either 6s or 9s. You don't need to distinguish between them. And then there are no zeros on the board. And then there are the numbers 1 through 9. So you take the first two numbers and you multiply them together. So 7 times 2 is 14. And then you can add the 6 to make 20, or you can do 7 times 2 is 14 minus 6 to make 8. You can also go in the other direction. So 7 times 2 is 14 plus 1 makes 15. You can go diagonally as well, back or forth, up and down or side to side, but you can't go in an adjacent way, like around a corner. Now, I made my own using our Silhouette Cameo and some magnetic sheets, and then I added our own little numbers to them in colors that kind of coordinated with the game, and that way we could make our own. And this was magnetic, so you can put it on the refrigerator or on some other surface. And that was just kind of a fun way that we could DIY our own, since I recognize that this is probably really hard to come by. However, if you do find it for a good price, I highly encourage you to get it, because it is a really simple yet really effective math game. And I'll tell you this, we play this all the time. Well, we play all the time in waves. Like some days or some weeks we'll play it over and over and over again, and then we won't play it again for like several months. But this is a game that the whole family enjoys, and I feel, are somewhat of a competitive family, and so we really enjoy the process of a game like this in which we're all competing for the one answer. And just recently, my 14-year-old and 18-year-old and I played it together, and I won. By a landslide. But it was so much fun, and we just really enjoyed it. Now, if my younger daughter is 9, and if I'm playing it with her, we will modify the game because she's not as fast with her multiplication table. So instead of having her do the multiplication and then add and subtract the last number, she might just look for, and it wouldn't work with 30, but it might work with, it wouldn't work with 33, but it would work with some of the other tiles, in which she just needed to multiply two numbers in order to arrive at the answer, or she could add two numbers or subtract two numbers to arrive at the answer. So she didn't have to do the two-step equation. She could just do the single-step equation, and then that way we could play with multiple ages, and each person could play at their own level or own ability. And then, of course, you can play in teams, or you can play where you are as a group competing against, say, the clock, or as a group just trying to get 10 10 answers and then you're done. And so you can play it that way if your children are either too young to enjoy a competitive game or they simply don't like it. So that's something to consider. I figured most children like competitive games, especially boys, but that's not always the case. So go ahead and choose what's going to be right for your family. I'm going to actually just leave this here for now. Hope the glare isn't too bad, and share with you one of our next favorite games. This one's called Set. And one of the reasons why I like this game so much is that it's really great for children of all ages. I find that once the younger students or younger kids learn how to play this game, they actually sometimes play it better than adults. So you are setting up 12 cards, and I know this will be a little bit difficult to see with all the other stuff going on here. But I also do have a tutorial on how to play this game, and that link is also down in the description box below, and that way you can see in more detail how to play this game. So we put down 12 cards, and then the cards are of 3 different colors. So you have the purple, the red, and the green. They're also of 3 different shapes. So you have an oval, a diamond, and a squiggly. And they're also filled in 3 different ways. You have the striped, the solid, and the empty. And you also have 3 different numbers. You have 1, 2, and 3. And so the purpose of the game is to find a set, and the sets are going to be with 3 cards that no 2 cards are the same. So if you have a set like this isn't going to work because both of these cards are green. Therefore, it can't be a set because you need them all to be the same or all to be different. So let's see if we can find a set with these cards right here. I couldn't find one fast enough with this set here, so I went ahead and I pulled another set so I could show you that in this case, you have all 3 different numbers, you have all 3 different shapes, and you have all 3 different fills. So this is an oval that's empty, that's purple, you have a diamond that's filled, and then you have the squiggly that's green and striped. So this is a really fun game to play, and if you can't find a set in the cards that are given, then you can add another 3 cards until you can get a set, and then you go back to just having the 12. What I noticed is that once children learn how to play this, they end up being really good about spotting sets, that especially the ones that are atypical, like the one that I had just shown you. And so this is a really fun game that is not obviously a mathematical game, but it is about finding sets and patterns, and it's awesome for your mental skills. So another game that we've really enjoyed as a family. A really simple game to play that I find to be probably great for kindergarten and 1st grade and even younger students who just have an affinity for math is Math Lotto by Ebu. I really like the games and other materials by Ebu. I find that the quality is spot on. It's so good. I like the illustrations. It's very durable. It's great for young children, especially keeping in mind that they end up sometimes being a little bit rough with toys. So I really appreciate how durable these pieces are. So these cards come with the addition on the front, or, on one side, and subtraction on the other side. And then you have all of these cards that you place upside down. And there are variations on the directions so that you can choose kind of a more simplified version of how to play it or a more competitive way to play it. Basically, all of the cards are upside down, and each player will in turn take a card, and then you have to try to match it to the equation that's on the board. So 9 minus 6 makes 3. So then you can put your card down here. So it's not really bingo. You don't want to just get one row or one column or diagonal. You actually want to fill the entire board. And there are multiple pieces that have the same answer, and there are also multiple cards. So this is good for up to, I think, 6 players. And on occasion, what we'll do is we will play with multiple cards at the same time. Sometimes an addition card and a subtraction subtraction card at the same time if we want a little bit more of a challenge. Although this is not like a timed game because each child is taking each person is taking their own card, assessing whether it fits on their board and then putting it back. What you could do to make it a little bit more competitive is just flip the one card over, and then each person is competing to see who can find the equation on their board the quickest so that they can retrieve that card. So a couple different ways that you can play this. Either way, I do really appreciate the quality of the board games, and it's a great opening activity to start out your homeschool day or just your school day or just for fun. So it's another game that we've enjoyed, but I can't say that it's one of my favorites only because I prefer to play the games that have a bit more competition included, a bit more strategy, a bit more skill involved, rather than the games that are a little bit more based on luck or that just don't have that same competitive edge. So this one is okay, but it's especially great for really young children because it isn't as competitive as some of the other games. Let me put these aside and dive into some more selections here for you. I'm going to take you over here to Equate. This is one of my favorite math games as well. This is quite competitive. Imagine Scrabble for math. And so you get a board that's really similar to your Scrabble board in that it comes with, let me pull this out this way. It comes with different symbols across the board, and these are going to tell you whether you get double score or triple score for the symbol that's on your tile, or whether you get double or triple score for your entire equation. So it definitely has more of a competitive edge. So there's quite a bit more strategy that you can include in a game like this. If you've played Scrabble before, you know that you can actually get double score, not even if there's a marker on the board that gives you double score for your equation. If you say create a word that, like if you add an S to the end of one word and it's part of your own word, then you get both scores. You get, the score for creating that new word with the S, plus you get your own score. So there is that same element with this game where you can get really creative with your equations if you're trying to get more points, and also you get a ton more points if you use all of your tiles into one equation. So what I've noticed happen with my son, especially who is 14, he's especially competitive. Sometimes he's more about trying to get a really awesome score rather than the equation itself, which is still part of the game, but it's more about, how can he manipulate the equation on the board in order to get the high score. Totally fine. It really adds to the competition, the competitive nature. So you get 9 tiles, and when I play with my kids, my 14-year-old will just choose the 9 tiles. I'll choose 9 tiles. My daughter, who's 9, will choose 9 tiles and then throw out all the tiles that she doesn't want to use. So she'll probably throw out definitely the division, most of the multiplication. She only does the whole number. She doesn't do the fractions. And so when she gets ready to create her equation, sometimes she'll just look through the bag and choose the numbers or operation symbols that are going to help her achieve her equation, and that's completely fine. That's a modification that I enjoy making so that she can really enjoy the game with us. And then at the end of the game, sometimes we'll divide our scores. I used to think that I could divide them by our ages so that we could be more of an even playing field, but I end up with like 3 points that way, so that doesn't work so well for me. But there's a way just to kind of maybe multiply the scores of the younger students so it's a little bit more on par with the abilities of all of the students. Okay, so there are multiple game pieces that you can get for this game, from the junior edition to the original tile set. You can get additional tiles as well, and then my favorite ones actually happen to be, this is the junior tile set. So I don't think it comes with I think it comes with more whole numbers and less fractions. And then maybe the fractions are a little bit more simple. And then you have the original tile set. And I believe there are other variations as well. And the original tile set is also going to come with some fractions, quite a bit of fractions actually, no decimals, no negative numbers, and you do need to follow the order of operations in order to complete your equations. We really, really love this game. We've had it in our homeschool for many, many years. I highly recommend this one. What I've noticed about this game is that, especially for my students as they move into upper elementary, junior high, and into high school, a game like this really allows us to practice in kind of real life, but not really, the work that we have been learning in math all the previous years. So my children have learned the four mathematical operations. They know how to do it with fractions and decimals and percents, but doing a game like this really tests how well you actually know it. And that's one of the reasons why I love this game, is because I'll see my son work through his fractions, and this was in the last few years, where you could really see where the holes were in his understanding and how he was able to bridge that gap by playing this game, not by going back to worksheets and examples through working with fractions, but literally by playing this game. It allowed him to really have a deeper understanding of fractions and decimals, because you're trying to create those equations. You're not trying to solve an equation that's been written down for you. You're trying to create those equations, and that really takes it from, yes, I know how to do this and I can do a bunch of questions on a worksheet and get them all right, to, do I really understand this well enough to create my own equation? So highly recommend this game. And yeah, I think it's good for ages. Well, actually, I mean, we've been able to play it with as young as second, third grade, even younger if you're modifying the game just to suit your child's needs. Maybe it's just number identification. Maybe it's just sequencing the numbers. Maybe it's skip counting the numbers. You can find ways to include them in a game like this so that everyone can play. I want to share with you another math activity, not really a math game. This is called Mosaic Mysteries. This is by Discovery Toys. We've had this in our homeschool for ages, and it's one that's not a math game. This is independent math activity, and you're working with these tiles that are plastic. They're different colored. They're really durable. I want to say we've had this for probably like 15 years, and it's in really good condition. And what I love is that it comes with extra pieces, because we know that game pieces can easily get lost in a home. And then it comes with different patterns that you can make. And my children love to create these patterns. They make them so easily. And then of course they can create their own. So this is a really great independent math activity that you can include within your homeschool as something that can enhance your lessons. It doesn't complement any particular math lesson, but I think just understanding how shapes work together to create other images is going to complement most math lessons as you get into geometry and above. So let's move on to a game that I have to admit I don't particularly like, but my children love it, and it's great for understanding money, adding money, subtracting money, and just understanding the value of coins and bills. So this is called the Allowance Game. It's by Lakeshore. I don't care for the illustrations. I don't even care for the game itself, but because my kids love it and have learned a lot through it, I'm adding it to this list as a valuable resource. I didn't realize that my daughter didn't have a good grasp on money, on the value of the coins, even on the names of the coins. And I realized that as we have moved more and more towards a digital form of currency in the form of credit cards, or paying through, like, say, Apple Pay or PayPal, or those kinds of ways to pay, we are becoming less and less familiar with currency in the physical form, in the dollars and in the coins. And it's something that I didn't recognize, because my older children definitely had money, and my oldest is 22, so like in these past 22 years, obviously a lot has changed when it comes to technology and money. And so I have now realized that my daughter didn't know what a dime was, and I just didn't even think to teach her in the way that was practical, because I took it for granted that she would just know because we deal with money. So this game really helped her get a better grasp on the coins, and of course the dollar bills and the $5 bills. It's a little bit easier to understand that. Now, one thing that I don't care for is that this game has, plastic pieces. I don't really care for these plastic replica pieces for the money. Of course, you can't have a game like this and you can't sell it using real money, but you could head to the bank and get a bunch of coins and include that in your game if you wanted to use real coins. And that's something that I actually want to change up about this game, because the coins it's a little bit hard to distinguish them. It's hard to see the details on them. You don't get a feel, like a weight feel for the difference in the coins. And so I would prefer to just get a bunch of coins and use those instead. So basically the point of the game is that you're trying to collect $20 by going around the board, and you land on these different places that either you lose money, or you have to pay money for something, or you're earning money through doing chores, or you're selling stuff. And so you're going around the board, and the purpose of the game is to collect $20. So I do like it. But from a competitive edge, from a strategy edge, there isn't much of that. It's really just the luck of the draw of where you end up on the board. So it really isn't about, well, did I save my money in this situation and I should have spent it? Did I invest it properly? There isn't any of that. It's really just luck of the draw where you end up on the board. However, my kids still love it. They've learned a lot and they enjoy playing it. So that's why I've included it here. I hope that you find it to be enjoyable if you end up getting this game, and that you find it to be educational as well. Okay, let's move on to some of my other favorite games, and that is the 24 game. Oops, this is really not wanting to close. Here we go. Okay, so I have 5 of these games to show you. And actually there are more of these ones, but these are the ones that we own. But some of the other ones that they make are on my wish list, so I can't wait to get them. So let's start with the easiest one, because it's a little bit different than the other card games, because in the majority of these other card games, the 24 game, so there's 24 game primer, 24 game primer original, and then this one says 24 games. So they have different titles, and then here it tells you what you're going to be doing with each of the games. But for the majority of the games, the point of the game is to make 24 using whatever numbers are on the card with whatever mathematical operations are included for that game. But with this first one, 24 game primer for ages 6 and up, for add and subtract, you're just doing addition or subtraction, and you're trying to make the number that's on the card, and you're using either one of these 2 wheels in order to make that number. So in this case, you have 13 and 5. So if you add them together, you get 18. If you subtract them, you get 8. So that doesn't make 10. And over here, you have 16 and 6. If you add them together, you get 22. And if you subtract them, you get 10. So then this is the correct one. And the answers are on the back as well. So this game is a little bit different than the other ones in that 2 things are different. One is that you get the answer. Some of the other ones have the answer as well, but this one you get the answer, and you have 2 different wheels, and you're trying to make the number that is indicated here on the card. All of the games come with 3 different difficulties in their cards. They have 1 dot for easy, 2 dots for medium, and 3 dots for hard. And you can see that they increase quite a bit. So these first cards just have the 2 numbers, but the second cards have 3 numbers, and the 3 cards also have 3 numbers. So what we would do when we were playing these games is that we would probably pull out just a few cards to play with, and play it that way so that we didn't play the whole deck. That could take hours. Another thing that we did was for the younger students, they could play the easy cards and simultaneously we could play the harder cards. And then another way to do this is that you could play the game the way it is, but then suppose you're like on an even playing field, then you could add up the number of dots, and that way, like if one person got a 1 card and one person got a 3 card, then the person who got a 3 card that got 3 points, just some ways to make it enjoyable and competitive. You don't need to do that with younger children. You might just want to play the game without the points, without the cards, like receiving the cards as your points, just so that it can be educational. The next one up is 24 game primer. This is multiply and divide. This is for ages 8 and up. And again, you have the same format of the 3 cards. So you have basic to advanced. You also are trying to make the number that's on the card, and you also are given the answers on the back of the card. So this one, you're doing just multiplication and division rather than addition and subtraction. So they're just single operations. Moving on, we have 24 game original. This is for 9 and up, and you're doing all 4 mathematical operations. And again, you have the different levels of difficulty. So you don't need to do every mathematical operation for the card, but I do believe you need to use every number to get to 24, and you don't get answers, so you really have to work with it. And then of course you have the 3 different difficulties. So this one, you're using all 4 mathematical operations. Let's move on to the ones that I find quite challenging. Fractions and decimals. For this one, you're going to be working with fractions and decimals and all 4 mathematical operations. And again, you have the various difficulty in cards, and you are trying to make 24, and there are no answers. And this one is pretty challenging. Once you get the hang of it, you start to see patterns and you start to understand, because you're always making the number 24. And so you start to know how to group numbers together in order to achieve that, and that's just a strategy that we've learned over time. Okay, the hardest one of the ones that I have is the integers. So you're doing positive and negative and all 4 mathematical operations, and I have to say that there were times while we were playing this game where it would take us 15 minutes just to get 1 card. I'm pretty sure it was with this one. It might have been with this one, but I remember really, really struggling. And this, even though it says ages 12 and up, I mean, certainly a 12-year-old could do this, but we were playing this with high school, college, and adult-aged people. So we really, really enjoy this as a family. Love it when like all the kids can get together and play this game. And my kids are older now, so I've got a 9, 14, 18, and 22-year-old. And so they're super capable of doing this. And again, we love math as a family. We're a little bit competitive when it comes to playing math games, and so we love playing these games together, especially when we get to one that's super challenging. We're all really struggling with it. And something that's really cool too is that if you can't all be together, sometimes I'll take a picture of the card and send it to our family WhatsApp group or just a family text messaging group, and then we can all work on it that way, and that's kind of fun. However, I recently found out that they also have an app that goes along with this game. I cannot remember if it's free or not, but it's well worth paying whatever fee or subscription, because this game is awesome. And that way then you can just play it from your phone or tablet. So that's another option that I just found out about in case these ones are hard to come by. So I want to share with you a math activity / math game. We've been using this in our homeschool for our math main lesson block. It's the wooden multiplication table board, and we got this from Lino Natura, but I know that there are other options out there, especially ones that go up to the 12 times table. And these are small, they are chokeable, so do be mindful of them. They come with questions on one side, the answer on the other side, and they're really beautifully colored. I love all of these soft kind of pastel rainbow colors. So what we could do to turn this into more of a game, because when you make something a game and there's a bit of a competitive edge to it, it really takes your lessons to a different mental space. It's no longer about like, oh gosh, I have to do a whole worksheet. It's, oh, there's something to be discovered. It's a game. We want to get the answer. We want to get the points. So what you could do is you could simply call out the question 4 times 5, and then whoever answers the question the quickest gets to keep the little peg or the little cylinder, and that way they can then add up how many each person gets, and that can be a way to make it a little bit more competitive. And then of course you could do the answer, and then they could try to figure out, well, what makes 20, and then that way you're adding, or you're really kind of changing it so that you're using a different part of your brain to figure out what 2 numbers multiplied together make 20. Of course, you could get any 2 numbers that you could add or subtract or multiply or divide to make 20. But if you want to keep it with the multiplication theme, then you could just call out 20, and then the children could try to guess, or, try to answer the quickest for what makes 20. So that's something else that we've really enjoyed. You can take all of them together, shake them up in the bag, and then like pull them out one at a time. So along with other math games that aren't exactly math, like competition games, I want to share with you a memory game. You can get any kind of memory game. It doesn't have to be this one in particular, but doing a memory game like this where you're matching 2, it's another way to explore math in a way that doesn't feel like it's math. You're increasing your memory, which you're going to need to have a solid memory in order to learn your math facts so that they come easily to you, so that you can work on more complicated math. And also this takes you into learning how to put pairs together. So this is a great activity for really, really young children. They tend to be super good at it. Or maybe it's just because I've gotten older and my memory's not so great. Anyway, you can, I'm sure you've played memory before, but bringing it in to your homeschool space as an activity that you yourself recognize as it being educational and academic, even though your kids may not recognize that, makes doing these games now something that's educational and not just, oh, well, we just played a game today, but now we have to get to our worksheets. No, like this can be the lesson itself. And so you're just, trying to pair them up. You have them all upside down. Each person flips 2 of them over, then flips them back if they don't get a pair. And if they get a pair, they get to go again. One thing that I do ask my children to do is to call out what they see on the cards. A lot of times they'll flip them over, then flip them back. They don't call out what's on the card, and then no one else maybe saw it, or it was too quick. And by calling out what they see on the card, it adds another element to the game. They have to recognize what they're seeing. They have to speak it. This is especially for really young children. And then also, I think by speaking the image that's on the card, it actually helps you remember better where it was on, on the board. So that's just something that I ask my kids to do. They probably half the time don't do that, but I do prefer it when they call out the image that's on the card. Uno is awesome for really young children. I think this and Monopoly, I actually didn't pull out Monopoly as a math game, but I will show it to you in the end. Monopoly and Uno were my children's introduction to math, and they learned so much, especially by playing Monopoly. They learned so much that just through play, that I was so impressed and so relieved that simple games that were enjoyable were also really academically rich or educationally rich. So Uno is really wonderful for really young children. You're recognizing numbers and colors and matching them together, or at least recognizing that if you want to, say, change the color from blue to yellow, then you can match up the 5s, or you're just sticking with the same colors. There are also some cards where you have to draw 4 or you're drawing 2, and that's just another simple way to begin to explore the world of numbers. So I definitely like Uno. We've had it for many years in our homeschool, and it's always been my children's introduction to math. 4-Way Countdown. This is a brand new game for us, and I don't really care for it too much because there's only so much you can do with it, and it's not as competitive as some of the other games. And so for me, I lose interest in it faster than my younger children. The really young children like it a lot. So you have 2 dice, you roll the dice, and you have 2 numbers. So you can take the 2, you're basically trying to pull up all of your little tiles here. So you can pull up the 2 and the 6, or you can do, suppose your 2 and your 6 are already up from a previous roll. Then you can do 6 plus 8, or sorry, 6 plus 2 making 8. Or you can do 6 minus 2, and that would make 4. Or you can do 6 divided by 2, and that would make 3. And if you had more, you could do 6 times 2, and that would make 12. So with just these 2, you could potentially make 5 different numbers depending on what you needed. So it's a great way to manipulate the numbers using the 4 operations in order to create the number that you need in order to win the game. So this has been enjoyable to my family, but it's not a game that I could see us having long term. It seems like it's a lot more geared towards the younger children, and it sort of plays itself out pretty quickly. So definitely, if you have it, include it in your homeschool activities. If you find it for a really good deal, definitely include it. This was a hand-me-down from a friend. We won't be keeping it for long, but I did want to share it with you because it is really simple and it's great for those young students. I have 2 more math activities that I want to share with you. This one is called Busy Bugs, and this one is great for preschool and pre-K and even kindergarten, and you're really trying to match up colors or the same kind of animal or insect rather, and patterns. And so it's really simple. These are math skills that you don't need a game like this to master. You can do this a lot just in your daily life. If you are speaking in terms of math, if you are talking about identification in the sense of, say, can you bring me 4 green Legos? I want to build a tree for you, for instance, something like that, where you are using the math terms within your daily life in a living, practical way. You won't need a game like this. My kids really liked this game though. They liked looking at the little animals or, the little insects. They liked putting the correct color or number onto the little boards. And I have pictures of my children when they were just toddlers playing with this game. So it comes with double-sided tiles or, game pieces. They are labeled, so I do think that they get more challenging. So you can see here where you're just, can you find all the blue bugs? And so that's kind of fun. Then you're just putting all of the blue bugs on the game sheet. Or in this case, you're going to find all of the spiders, but then you have to match them up with the correct color. And so something like this is fun to play. It is educational, but you don't need a game like this in order to learn these academic and math skills. It's just kind of fun to have on hand, especially if you have toddlers and kindergartners and probably a little bit too old for first grade, but especially if you have really young kids in your homeschool and you're looking for activities to keep them occupied while you're doing something with the older kids. This is definitely something that my children have enjoyed over the years. I have one more game that this is great for, I think, a wide range of ages, because my children have enjoyed playing this even as they get into being 9, 10, 11, 12. They're still enjoying this game. So this is called Playful Patterns. It's a design activity. You're working with geometric shapes in order to create these other images, and you get 6 different colors. They're in this nice, durable, really strong foam. And the cards, they're okay. They're not the most durable. Again, I really love the durability of Ebu toys, but we have played this in our homeschool for years and it's still in pretty fair condition. So, my kids loved to eat these, not literally eat them, but can you see the bite marks here? There's something really satisfying about this density of foam that really encouraged them to bite them. So do be careful if you have toddlers or young children or babies or infants, because they are, in my opinion, chokeable. So you want to be really mindful of games like this that have really small pieces. So basically you can use these pieces, these geometric pieces, in order to create these different images. And then of course you can make them on your own. I'm actually really not that great at playing this game, but you can create your own images as well. And then there are also these ones that are definitely more academic based for geometry, where you can look at the different types of triangles and try to piece them together. And then there are other ones where you are putting the shapes together, so it names all the shapes for you. And then when you can put these 2/4 circles together for a semicircle, a half circle, and same with these squares and rectangles to squares. So those are other academic or educational qualities of this game. All right, I have only one more game to show you before we wrap up. So the last game I want to show you is Monopoly, and I mean, it's a game I know that you've played before, but I do want to highlight how it is educational, or rather mathematical, because my children learned a lot by playing Monopoly. So the first thing is that you're dealing with money. So 1s all the way to 500. And as you're buying property, as you are paying for things that you land on, as you are earning money, that's tons of math right there. And what's really cool is that it's a lot of mental math. Of course, you get your dice, and by rolling them, you need to add them together in order to move. It really helps you with tracking as you go around the board. I had one of my children could not track with his fingers and his voice at the same time. So if he was taking a game piece and moving it around the board, suppose he got 4, so you're supposed to go, if you're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and he would 1, 2, 3, 4. He wouldn't count and move the piece at the same time. And he was, I think, 5 when he started playing this game. And so that was an opportunity for me to recognize an issue that he had and kind of work on it with him as he played this game. He ended up getting the other math stuff pretty easily. It was more of another issue that he had with tracking and speaking and moving the game piece around. But he was able to very quickly learn how to add numbers, 2 numbers up to 6. So that would be 12 altogether very quickly. And then of course, what was more of a challenge, but he ended up doing it really well, is counting the money for when you're going around the board and you're buying things. And then the other thing is that when you are paying rent on properties, you're sometimes paying really small amounts, and that gives you an opportunity again to do a lot of mental math. So we didn't use calculators when we were doing this. Of course you could if you wanted to, but this allowed us to do tons and tons of mental math. And of course we would play for, hours in the course of a week. And you would think, oh, well, you played a game. What did you do for homeschool? Well, actually, you did some awesome math for homeschool. So don't undermine the mental math. Don't undermine the simple addition and subtraction math. We want to be able to master those skills. And by playing games is one way for us to master them in a really enjoyable way. I hope you enjoyed this look at my favorite math games and math activities. Don't forget to check out the course page or the blog post that goes along with this so that you can find out more information about the math games that I'm sharing with you. That link is down in the description box below. And if you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.